All right, joining us today is a man who, quite frankly, has become a champion in pretty much everything he has ever done. You've seen him in the Octagon, you've seen him in the WWE, and now you get to hear him on another wrestling podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Dan the Beast Severn.
How's it going, Jonathan?
I'm doing great. That's what my question for you was. How are you doing today?
Well, it's phenomenal. People ask me all the time, they're like, "How's it going?" I go, "Just living the life." But some people may say it facetiously and stuff like that, but I mean it sincerely. I like what I do. I dictate my own life. I live a very crazy life, a busy life, and I've lived out of a planner since probably my junior year in high school because of all the things I had going on. So I've always been a guy that tends to plan, calculate, and have goals and aspirations, and that's kind of what keeps me focused and keeps me driven on a daily basis.
All right, well, that's great to hear, and we've got a lot to talk about, so I want to get right into it. I know, like you just said, you're a very busy man, so over time, you've become it's undeniable, actually, that you've become one of the greatest fighters in the world. Competitors, anything that you want to say, you've really became one of the best in the world. Growing up, was this something that you ever thought was possible?
Well, no, I'll simply say that, I don't know, I think it would be possible. Yeah, I guess, yeah, to say that there's a possibility, yes. I've always been kind of an optimistic type of person, and all that I can do is try. I guess just to give you an example, I teach a youth class with kids, ages 5 on up, and I hear all the time, I can't do that, and I go, no, Coach Severn never wants to hear the words, I can't. Simply say, I'll try. And go, sometimes you'll succeed, sometimes you won't, but at least try. And that's, I guess that's what I've always done, is tried to put my best effort forward. Sometimes it has succeeded, sometimes it hasn't, but I'd say that percentage-wise, my success has way outweighed the failures.
Absolutely. Now, you just mentioned, young kids that you help train and coach. But what was your childhood like? Did you have what we call a normal childhood? Did you move around a lot? Like, what was it like growing up?
Well, I don't know how old you are there, Jonathan, but did you ever remember hearing or watching the TV sitcom Walton's Mountain?
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of these like cage fighters, they always have these tales of woe of that. They were, that they were in juvenile homes, in and out of juvenile homes, in trouble with the law, or they were adopted and things of this nature. And to me, it's like, when they always ask me, well, what's your story? And I go, well, I grew up on Walton's Mountain. I had, 7 other brothers and sisters. The shenanigans that we got into was, cow tipping and stuff like that. So, I grew up, I'd say I had the all-American type of a childhood in the sense that I grew up on a farm, a 120-acre farm, and it was a mixture of crops and animals. So, in the springtime, tilling the soil, stuff like this, planting your crops, harvesting your crops, but then at the same token, we had animals. You name the animals, and we raised them at one point in time. Just running down, chickens, pigs, ducks, geese, lambs. For 7 years, I milked Peggy, the milk cow, for example. And you learn real quick that you did not name these farm animals because sooner or later they would end up on your plate.
Exactly.
So that's to say, I had a phenomenal childhood, growing up on this much land, but the land was not just all farmland. There was probably about, I'll say 30 or 40 acres of it was wooded, so to have woods and streams and things of that nature, building a tree house and, being in the river, to go after frogs and tadpoles and fishing fish and actually eating the fish out of the river. At that point in time, till whatever 20, 30, 40 years later, now there's all these concerns about mercury contamination, pollution, and all those things of that nature. But that was not a concern at that point in time. I did not have a care in the world. So.
Now, obviously, with all that space, you guys, you had a lot of brothers and sisters. You were running around. Did you guys all play sports growing up? Was there a time whenever it became more important to you? I know that you didn't just wrestle. I know that you dabbled. So, what all did you do growing up?
Well, like anyone else, I'll give you the pecking order. I was the second born. There's 5 males. 3 females, so 8 of us total. The 5 males did all go to college on full athletic scholarships, all for the sport of wrestling. My brothers and I, we all played football, we all wrestled, but then in the spring, some of us, decided to play baseball, while others, we decided to do track. So it was, that was, like I said, this kind of the background there. But they have 5 males that went on to college on full athletic scholarships for the sport of wrestling. 4 of us went to Arizona State, 1 went to Michigan State. My 3 sisters went to college on just about full academic scholarships. So I always like to tell people I'm a jock with a brain, which is kind of a rare commodity nowadays. And the running, I guess, kind of sibling type of feud was the sisters would simply say, "'Tis better to have brains or brawn." But then our rebuttal would be, "Well, we can beat the brains out of you now, can't we?" And so it was, comedy, but just some tongue-in-cheek type of stuff right there, to where just all done in good sibling rivalry. That's all.
Absolutely. Now, do you remember, as you're growing up, you're starting to play sports and you're in school and all this? Did you have any? You worked on a farm. Did you have any early goals as to what you wanted to do when you grew up?
Yes, I did. Realistically, I would say that being that some of my friends had older brothers, a couple of them, they're my friends' older brothers. They were in the military and stuff like that. I'd say up until probably my 9th grade year, I was thinking, well, if I end up going to college, more than likely upon high school graduation, I'm going to go to the military, and I'm going to give up whatever 4 years of my life, and then I was going to go to college on the GI Bill. That's what I was starting to formulate, at that time. But then, by my sophomore year in college, I'm starting to turn the heads of some college coaches. I'm like, well, maybe there's a possibility of yet another route to college, and that is getting some type of an athletic scholarship and going that route. And so that's basically what it was. It's kind of like going, but I'm going to this small, classy school. How am I going to get the heads to turn more and to become more in demand? So basically, by my junior year, I went to again, I don't remember what this particular tournament was, but this tournament had 2 age groups. It had what's called the junior age group, which means 18 years and younger, which I fell into. I went that age group, and I went 3 weight classes: 198, 220, and heavyweight. The rules were different at that point in time, and you could do that. And typically, every gymnasium would always be set up with 3 mats. So literally, I would be on 1 mat wrestling. They would be calling me on deck on mat number 2, and I would be in the hole in mat number 3. And by the time that they called you to report to the mat, you had 5 minutes before you would be disqualified. So literally, I'd be on mat number 1, and as I finish up my opponent there, I'd be wiping down with the towel and taking a sip of water, head to mat number 2, knowing that I had to do all this probably in less than probably 15 minutes, because I've got to be down to mat 3 here eventually as well. So in But not only did I go my junior age group, I also went the open age group, which was anything over 18 years of age. So now I'm going against college students. I'm going against men that are out of college, vying for national team, Pan American teams, Olympic teams. So I always tell people, in one day, I went 2 age groups, a total of 6 weight classes.
Wow.
17 matches later, I walked out of that gymnasium with 6 gold medals. I got the attention. I turned heads. They're like going, "Who is this kid?"
Well, obviously after winning, championship and after championship, like that, is that when in your mind your goals started to change from thinking maybe military to possibly doing this as a career?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's that's what. Well, as I said, by my sophomore year, I was just starting to turn some heads.
Mm-hmm.
To where, as a college coach is talking, but it's very little. That's when it instilled to me that there might be a possibility. So that's when I started to push harder to know that if I only did what my coach tells me to do in practice, I'll be just as good as everybody else. But if I want to become better, I have to spend more time outside of practice. If cardiovascular is my issue, running more. If strength is my issue, lifting more. If I'm having some problems with some techniques, if I'm more susceptible to being beat by this technique, something like this, is spending time drilling this technique, how to do it offensively or how to shut it down defensively. So it just started to dedicate more and more of my time. Yeah, I do a lot of speaking engagements now, everything from goal setting and to setting goals, trying and working hard towards those goals, but everything from there to motivating people to talk about younger kids, bullying type movements and things of that nature, just the importance of education. And it's I use myself as an example. I just tell them I was just like any other kid. Kind of just going through, but it just, my freshman year in high school, I did meet my very first Scholastic Wrestling magazine, and that's when I read about, weightlifting techniques of, how to get to different types of weight classes, lower weight classes, losing body fat, cardiovascular routines, weightlifting routines, then the psychological aspects, mental imagery, and then, by my freshman year, I said, my eyes were open to wow, there's a whole lot more to this sport than what I thought there was. But then as I go through practice, just doing what the coach told you to do, but I kept thinking, well, if I just do what the coach is telling me to do, I'm going to be just as good as these other 40 or 50 guys that are on the wrestling team.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to make me better? For example, in the same principle goes in a state like the state of Michigan, there are over 400 high schools that have high school wrestling programs. If you are only doing what that coach tells you to do, you really should be no better, no worse than anybody else. So there's a potential of 400 state champions.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to make that difference? And that is putting that time in to work on all those factors I said before. Conditions of problem, doing more cardiovascular type of work. If technique or lack of technique, spending more time in those areas. And the key word that comes up almost all the time is, if you want to succeed in anything, what are you willing to sacrifice? Because everything has a cost to it.
Yep.
Even now, as I have a 10,000 square foot training facility here in Coldwater, Michigan. The name of the place is called Michigan Sports Camp. It's a very generic name because I simply know I can teach whatever I want underneath this roof as long as I have an instructor that is capable of doing it. And I always tell people it's referred to as the House of Champs because I've had a lot of guys have a lot of success that have come out of here, but it boils down to, what are you willing to sacrifice? And when they're like, well, what do you mean? I go, well, most of you are not willing to sacrifice time away from your friends or your family. And that's, or from a TV show, or from a video game, or from whatever. And that's, if you want to know how you're going to get better, you have to take time that you are spending in other areas and now direct that towards your goals. If that is, technique-wise, something like that. Because I'm a driven person, John. I've been a driven person. Like I said, probably by my ninth grade year on, just by reading that first Scholastic Wrestling magazine, and I talk about that as part of my education because I specifically say that, an education, it is a power. It's the more that you read, the more. Let me rephrase that. It's not. It matters what you read as well. If you just read a bunch of frivolous type of comic books, I really don't think that's going to help advance you in other areas. It's what you read, and you fill your time with it. And even now, even my significant other, she kind of wishes that I would read something just for entertainment purposes. She says everything you read, she says you're so mechanical. You're like a robot in the sense that there really is no entertainment value because it's always like these self-help or motivational or success type of material, and I go, but I enjoy that. Kind of like when we first started the interview, and you asked me how I'm doing it, and I say I'm living the life. You can realize, ever since 1992, I've worked for myself. I always tell people I'm the president and the janitor all wrapped in one. I get to tell myself what to do. I get to fire myself if I don't like it. I'm how my work, but I have to rehire myself because I can't find anybody else to work for that cheap bastard either. So I mean, it sounds comical, but it's and most people enjoy being around me because they see the upbeat personality that I have. Because when you meet most people, Jonathan, and you say, how's it going? How many people really come back with a very positive response?
It's true. It's true.
I do that all the time with people. I'm like, hey, good morning, how's it going? Stuff like that. And they're all like, it's almost like you open a Pandora's box. It's like, oh, woe is me, woe is me. And they're like, well, how are you doing? I go, fantastical. Or something like that. And they're like, I go, but don't ask me how to spell that. It makes them smile, makes them giggle, stuff like this. So I like to think that I brighten up people's lives just by smiling at them and just say, fantastic. If you really want to delve deeply into it and hear someone's tale of woes and darkness and stuff like this, nobody does.
Well, it's great to see that you're so positive. I think that there needs to be more of that in the world right now. Obviously, now more than ever. But it's good to see because everybody's got problems. Everybody's got issues. So it's just it's how you deal with them, I guess, is the best thing. And you've
one of my biggest problems there, Jonathan, is time.
Mm-hmm.
The sheer lack of it. As I'm sitting at my desk, I'm looking at all the different things to do here. As I go on, I have to live 3 more lives just to get the current list done, and I keep adding to it on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
I'll never be really bored with life because I like what I do, and I have such a big variety of what I do. I always tell people, it's like, half the time, I don't know if I want to be a professional wrestler when I grow up. I want to be a cage fighter when I grow up, and doing amateur wrestling and submission grappling. These are just things that I have done, and it's kind of going. But I enjoy the aspect of travel. I've been to every state in the United States. I have done something in every state in the U.S. I've been to every country that has ever had a wrestling program, and some countries that do not exist anymore, such as there used to be in East Germany. I've been there 3 different times to see the Iron Curtain and the Berlin Wall, and to do competition. I did an interview with a German group, I'll say, somewhere last, say 6 or 8 months. I asked them to interview me, stuff like this. They're like, have you ever been to Germany, Mr. Severn? And I go, well, I've been to both West Germany and I've been to East Germany, but I have never been to just Germany. And they're like, what? I said, well, I've been there 3 different times, but that was still during the Cold War era. So I flew into West Germany, and then by ground transportation, this U.S. team and myself, we had to pass through the Iron Curtain to get into East Germany. Leipzig, East Germany is where this tournament was held. And they were just blown away because they were just much younger people. You know, for example, I mean, Johnson, don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I am 32.
32. So a lot of things that always come up, always tell people, I started my amateur wrestling career in 1969. I started teaching amateur wrestling by 1971. Wow. I won my first national title in 1972. And I'd always tell them, like, going, and as people start doing this calculation, like, man, you're old. I go, yeah, I am. But one of the greatest testimonials to an athlete is the test of time. Not the sheer fact that I won a onesie or a twosie type of event. The sheer fact that I won stuff again and again and again, and it transferred over to the next sport. And I won things again and again and again, and it transferred over to something else. So if you can see, there is somewhat of a pattern that I take the same mental approach and physical approach to almost everything I do. And I always tell people, because they still see me working out, they're like, what are you working out or training for now? And I'll say, for the greatest competition in the world. And they're like, what's that? And I go, it's called life. I go, everyone wants to live as long as possible. Everyone would like to have quality of life over the long haul. But if you have to look at it like an investment. If I don't put something into it, how can I ever expect to take something out of it? And that's the thing that I equate to all the time. Because there's so many. Well, in the United States, it's just one of those countries where we are kind of known as the fattest country in the world. So we have a very high ratio of diabetes, heart disease, things of that nature.
Well, I want to get back just for a second. You had talked about high school and college, and these days it's not really uncommon for people, scouts to come in. You said that people were scouting you for college. My question is, and we'll get into your pro wrestling career in just a second, but did you ever have anybody during those times approach you about professional wrestling?
Through the mid-80s and on, yes.
Okay.
I was approached by a number of different independent professional wrestling companies.
Okay.
But had I turned pro at that point in time, I would have lost my amateur status, and my amateur wrestling career meant too much to me, so I did not turn pro at that time.
Okay.
But as of the 1992 Olympics, a new rule came down from the United States Olympic Committee that allowed athletes to be both amateur and professional and simultaneously, as long as you are not involved in a high school athletic program or a collegiate program, because you would still be covered by high school athletic association rules or the NCAA rules. I was well past my collegiate eligibility, so I could have my cake and eat it too.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, we know when you started your career in UFC, but prior to your career in UFC, that's when you truly began your MMA career. We've heard some stories of you fighting in wrestling and all over the world, like you just mentioned. At that point, before you began your UFC career, you were traveling in some places that may not be all that safe for you. Was there ever a fear for you that you may not make it back home?
Only on a couple occasions when I say that. Primarily, I regaled the story quite a few different times. I talk about my very first true international experience. I mean, I did some previously when I went over to the country of Turkey. on that particular trip, it was normal up to the point that we had a moderate-sized crowd, stuff like this, lots of things along those nature. But something happened that none of my teammates and I ever knew about. I'm sure our coaches knew, but they probably keeping us in the dark so that we weren't panicking at. Something happened between the United States and Turkish officials, to where our crowds quadrupled in size, to where military surrounded our hotel towards the evening. We were told to keep our curtains closed and not to walk by open windows.
Wow.
Upon arriving into at that place where we flew into Istanbul, Turkey. Upon arriving that day, on that particular day, we had just departed the airport by roughly about 45 minutes, and it was just a couple terrorists had entered the airport and had thrown hand grenades into crowds of people, and then machine gunned down a number of other people before they were subdued. Now, unlike in the United States, we really don't show very graphic pictures of really the demise of people. Most other countries, they don't care about that. That they rather show the graphicness of the nature so that people, you should be a little bit more horrified by what took place. Well, I think the military police chief or whatever was holding up the heads of the two terrorists that they had subdued. Of course, they were not alive.
Yes.
So, like I said, it just, to say it from there, then, our crowd, something happened between U.S. and Turkish officials, and our crowds quadrupled, military surrounding our hotel at night. Lights have to be off, not walking in front of windows. And then, now at actual dual meets, because this was all amateur wrestling, but it was amateur wrestling, freestyle wrestling, which are the two amateur wrestling inside the United States. We're the only country that does folk style. The rest of the world does freestyle Greco-Roman. So this particular trip was a freestyle tour, and I'm just a part of just a U.S. all-star teams, ages 16, 18 years of age, and we're out there wrestling. And we're even having, because we're doing so well against our opponents, that groups of men are, you got to realize, there's U.S. military is still present inside this arena, and like MPs, and groups of Turkish men, 2 or 3 at a time, would start to rush the match because we were winning, and literally these military personnel, they're pulling out their nightstick and subduing these people.
Wow.
To the point that as we're sitting on the bench, knowing that your match is coming up, you're wondering as you're sitting there, does someone have a set of crosshairs on you right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those thoughts did cross my mind way back then. It's been a while since I've never talked about that, because it's not until you ask this question. But you really thought there was a possibility that someone could have, there could be a sniper, terrorist, whatever, could have sights on you right then and there, and you'd never have known it.
Yeah, I don't know how well I would do under that pressure. I think that's just amazing. But now, obviously,
But as you said before, though, a lot of that really did help prepare me for my cage fighting career. I always tell people I've been hurt far worse in my amateur wrestling career than I have been in all of my cage fights combined. But which is even more ironic is I have been hurt in my professional wrestling career more than the other two combined.
Yeah, I could see that too. um,
So that's, I mean, that's almost mind-boggling because, you know, one is just fantasy. It's a show. It's entertainment. You know, I don't like it when people say it's fake because it may not be a true athletic competition, but it's a very physical show of give and take. And the athletes, I always say that professional wrestlers are some of the most incredible athletes, doing some of the most incredible athletic maneuvers without the aid of a safety net.
Oh, absolutely. And you started, wrestling with the illustrious NWA back in '95. At that time,
Yes.
were there any people in the locker room that were kind of upset, even though you had a very amazing amateur background? Were there people kind of upset that you were coming from like a different world other than professional wrestling? Did you get any of that in the locker room?
No, I'd say not really. You know, the professionals actually made me a whole lot more nervous than actually climbing in and doing, legitimate competition. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in legitimate competition, all I do is walk up there and get results.
Yes.
But in professional wrestling, you are filling a window of time of entertainment. You know, it could be a short match known as a squash match, or it could be a long drawn out 1 hour match known as Ironman match.
Ironman match.
That they call it. But when you go for 1 hour for an hour match, it basically they refer to it as an Ironman match. Not that doesn't happen very often anymore, just because Americans have such short span of attention, short span of attention. But that the bar continues to be risen more and more, especially in that crazy world of professional wrestling. But I'd say I didn't really wasn't concerned as much there as I was concerned for what the people in amateur wrestling thought of me going into professional wrestling.
Yes.
I did not tell any of my friends because I simply knew that I would have been probably ostracized. And I traveled basically about 2.5 hours away to Lima, Ohio, and I was working with Al Snow and Body Slam machine that he had in Lima, Ohio at that time. So talk about investment in time alone. Here I am driving 2.5 hours for a 3-hour workout and then driving back 2.5 hours. So I've got 8 hours invested into one workout. And I'm doing that a couple times a week.
Wow. You became a champion fairly quickly in the world of professional wrestling.
With the NWA, that was I really did not have very much of a professional background on me. That I was approached by Dennis Carluzzo and a couple other people in the NWA, and they wanted to do kind of throwback of days gone by. They wanted to put the belt back on a shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the term just means a person of true capabilities.
Yeah.
And so I didn't wear any kind of flamboyant outfits. Literally, it was the same type of gear that I wore in the Ultimate Fighting Championships. I was wearing for the NWA and matches at that time.
So, were you surprised? I mean, just by the amount of confidence that they put into you in wanting to make you their champion?
Well, it made me feel good that they felt I had that kind of capability. And as more time passed on, I became more and more aware of all the different past champions who had held that belt, and it's very, very prestigious. The more studying and looking into the background, there is a great history, a lineage that the NWA National Wrestling Alliance had. Not all of the previous champions have had legitimate background, but I think during those eras, I think it had a lot more respect to it. I always try to tell people that internationally speaking, the NWA belt probably is probably much more prestigious than what the WWE belt is, just because of a lot of the legendary shooters that have held that belt.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of cool. Like one out of blue one night, that Bruno Sammartino called me up on my personal cell phone. I mean, I had not even met him at that point in time, let alone how did he ever get my personal cell phone. So he calls me up, and then he just goes, I hear what you're doing with the belt, stuff like this. You're giving it the honor and respect it deserves. Keep up the good work there, young man. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool.
Oh, I'd say. Now, you mentioned a lot of travel and all of that. Was that one of the things that, you said you enjoyed traveling, but was that one of the actual hardships as well of being a professional wrestler during those times? Because I know that you guys traveled around a whole lot. So it was obviously something that you enjoyed, but was it also one of the hardships of professional wrestling?
No, I agree. You hit the nail on the head. It's a give and take world, and that was, as I said, I lived out of a planner. And at the time that I was working, even when I was working for the WWF at the time, I was the very first non-exclusive wrestler ever. And as far as I know, still am. I was working for 35 different promoters in the NWA alone. On top of now giving the WWF X number of dates on an annual basis. But I was not exclusive to Vince. I was not exclusive to the NWA, so literally now I could take bookings with ECW, WCW, or any other independent promotion if I wanted to.
That is.
So I lived out of a planner. I would be on the road easily 20 some odd days a month, to where the point when I'd be waking up. In my car, because I travel by my car. I would have multiple gym bags in my trunk. Am I a cage fighter? Am I a professional wrestler tonight? Am I going to be teaching an amateur wrestling class here? Am I going to be working with law enforcement there? I mean, I would have to look. I'd wake up in the morning sometimes, and then as I'm, rubbing the sleep on my eyes, stuff like this, I'm thinking, well, first of all, I'm thinking, I'm like, where am I at? What is my function today? I actually had to look at, I always refer to my planner as my portable brain. And even when people talk to me, I go, Dad, remember we got this coming? I go, send me an email. I said, unless it's printed in my planner, it doesn't exist. And a lot of people, they just didn't understand. I wasn't just a professional wrestler. I wasn't just a cage fighter. I literally, my first love is still teaching amateur wrestling. But since that time, since that 94 period of time, I've been working with law enforcement. Since 1995, I've been working with corrections. And since that time, I have worked with Border Patrol, Air Marshals, and military. I'm the first civilian ever to go on a couple of the private security companies that retrains a lot of the military once their tours are done, and they go right back to Iraq or Afghanistan and do the exact same job. They're just paid 3 or 4 times as much now that they're in the private sector. So I think each one has a different set of rules of engagement as well, and I understand them. I guess that's really kind of, Benjamin, that's kind of like one of my true gifts is physical mechanics. I've even worked with my different children on simple aspects of athletics, of doing the run the long jump or high jump, or even my oldest son when he was a basketball player. I was not a basketball player, but I understood the principles and fundamentals. Having orange cones and having a portable basketball hoop net, and run them to drills so he could bounce basketball with his left hand, bounce basketball with his right hand, weaving back and forth in between cones, doing layups, doing shots, playing around the world, all this stuff to where it helped them. It's kind of like that, as I say, as I go back to like that youth class that I teach there. I do a youth MMA class, but youth MMA does not stand for mixed martial arts; it stands for modern martial arts. Mm-hmm. And so that's a class that goes from age 5 up to just around that junior high age, knowing that once they hit junior high, now they have team sports that they can jump into: basketball, football, wrestling, all that kind of stuff. And I'm just there to help teach them gross motor skills, hand-eye coordination, things of that nature, because they do all types of gymnastics, tumbling. They'll do all types of drills that develop hand-eye coordination, dexterity, movement. A lot of the coaches, they love what I do here because they know that I'm giving them, I'm playing games with them, physical games, but I'm developing all those skills so that it will pertain to football, it will pertain to basketball, it will pertain to all these other sports.
Absolutely. But I think, we've talked, kind of about your training and all that stuff, but one of the coolest things that I think, because we share this, is the fact that you've maintained a chemical-free lifestyle. I think that's in this day and age, especially for the line of work that you've been in, that is just an unheard of feat. Why is it so important to you that you've maintained that chemical-free lifestyle?
I'll say for a couple of reasons. I should know that I can look in the mirror and I can know that I've achieved all my success on my own ability. I didn't have to take a pill. I didn't have to take a shot. But on the other aspect is I do a lot of speaking engagements. And when I'm there in front of those kids, or whether it be kids or high school or college or even talking with men, I always despise that hypocritical athlete that they're like, they're going, yo, don't do drugs, stay in school, and yet a week later they're busted with this, that, and the whole 9 yards. I'm thinking, why did you ever do that talk in the first place? Just shut up.
Yep.
Or just at least admit, do as I say and not as I did. But there's just so many hypocritical athletes that I don't like that. I'd have so much more respect to say, yeah, I screwed up. The temptation was too much there for me. And I've had temptation around me at all times. To be in high school, when I was in high school, marijuana was the number one thing. LSD was probably number two right there with it. I went to a lot of parties on a Friday night or something like this to only stay for a little bit, and everything started to get popped up. And the guys like, "Hey, Dan, let's have a beer." I was like, I got us a bit. Something like that. Just coming up to tomorrow. The hard part is that, okay, at that age, you're 17 years of age, getting ready to turn 18 years of age, right by your senior year in high school, and you got a good-looking gal. They're like, "Hey, Dan, let's go smoke a joint, and let's go, have sex or something like this." And it's like going, "Wow, there's a lot of temptation there." It's like going, but no, it will affect me in this way. It'll affect me in that way. Whether you're telling them or you know that in your mind, and you find a way to kind of bow out or get out of there. That's peer pressure is huge, especially at the young age. Again, that's what I talk about when I talk with younger people. The peer pressure, because everyone wants to be accepted somehow. I always said that I had several different families, and when it came to sports, because in the fall, it was my football family. In the winter, it was my wrestling family. In the springtime, it was my track family. But growing up on the farm, there was always my family. There was always, when you wake up in the morning, you got to get your chores done. You got to take care of your animals before you get taken care of. You got to, that's just the rules of growing up. Sharing. I knew what sharing was because having 7 other brothers and sisters, I was second on the totem pole, so it's like, did I ever have a bedroom to myself? No. I had to share a bedroom with an older brother, stuff like this. There was we called it. We had 2 different what do you call them? They're laundry baskets. Mm-hmm. That you would with the family kids, you had a white sock laundry basket and a dark sock laundry basket. You just hope that you got two socks that were closely matched to each other. What a lot of kids think today is pretty cool because they wear all these odd matching socks. Well, I must have been pretty darn cool way before my time because it was tough to find a matching pair of socks sometimes.
Absolutely. Now,
So, I mean, but there's just so many. Even my own kids, they don't have a comprehension of this, because it's I have 5 children of my own, and they don't have any comprehension about this. It's but about those kinds of things, it's but I try to instill a work ethic though into them as well.
Well, it's
but they just have this generation of millennials. I swear to God, I just don't understand. It's they just still feel like they're just entitled to anything. I'm thinking, I know how I raised my kids, and yet I can see how they're being influenced by their friends stuff like this, because like the first time when my oldest son was approaching me, he goes, "Daddy," he goes, "Why don't I receive an allowance?" I go, because you're really not doing anything extra around here to earn an allowance first. And they're like, but my buddies, they receive this on a weekly basis. I go, for doing what? And they're like, well, because they clean up their room. I go, well, you live in this house. You should clean up your room. And I said, you don't buy no food. You don't pay for the heating bills, cooling bills, anything of that nature. I said, so, I mean, to me, it's, these are just some bare bones essentials here of living here underneath this roof. I go, but picking up your room or do something that is normal, there's no compensation for that. I go, if you would like some jobs to make money, I said, I've got no problem doing that. All my kids have been my janitors in my training facility, to give you an example. So, mopping mats, sweeping floors, cleaning toilets, all that kind of stuff. Or I'll have jobs, trimming the hedges, mowing the lawn, raking leaves. I could come up with chore after chore after chore, and they receive compensation that way. But it's knowing that you work to receive something. Again, that's what I tell you. There's so many things wrong in the United States here and we continue to lower our standards, and the handouts continue. And I'm thinking, somebody's got to work. So,
well, it shows through you, like we said, and it's no secret that these are things that have helped you throughout your career. You're still fighting even today. You mentioned that you have this training facility, but what's kind of your secret to staying in shape after all this time of doing this? And how come your body hasn't broken down versus other people that have done this for less amount of time than you?
Well, you've asked me 2 kind of loaded questions. I mean, it's I'll break it down here like this. How have I been able to maintain and not break down? I'd say it's a combination of a couple things. I always knew what my strength was going into matches in the first place. If we talk about like mixed martial arts, I knew that my grappling ability was my strength. My weakness was my stand-up. No matter how much time I spend on my stand-up game, it will never equal my ground game, because I started my ground game in 1969. If I only started my stand-up game in 1994, how will that mathematical equation ever equal? It won't, because I still continue to do ground stuff, and I have incorporated a lot more stuff in my stand-up game, but they will never equal. The scales will always be lopsided. Now, I never thought I would have done the cage fighting stuff as long as I have. And the reason I refer to this cage fighting, because most of your listeners, they only know about the word MMA for mixed martial arts, but they don't really remember the predecessor was known as NHP, no holds barred. The big difference there is today's athlete operates underneath the rules of about 37 rules. Part of those rules, there's weight classes, there's time periods known as rounds. Athletes wear gloves, and they fight one opponent, and they give it evening. Back in the no-holds-barred era, you had only 2 rules that you had to abide by. Those being the do not bite your opponent, and number 2, do not stick fingers in the eye socket. No eye gouging. Into the rules. Anything else that your imagination could conjure up, you were good to go. It was bare knuckled. There were no weight classes. There were no time periods, and it was an 8-man tournament. You had to face and defeat 3 opponents in the same 2-hour pay-per-view that still prevails to this day. And yours truly here is the only Triple Crown champion from the no-holds-barred era. I won one of the regular 8-man tournaments. I won I think the one and only Ultimate that they ever had, where they brought back various champions that are runners-up into what it was going to be like the Super Bowl of events. And then ended up winning one of the Super Bowls. So, I don't even know what the question was, but that's basically, I just got to give the differences between what mixed martial arts and what no holds barred is. So, what was the actual question now here, Benjamin?
I was just wondering how you've been able to...
how I held up. Because of my background, my grappling ability was my background, and I always used that as my strength. I tried to really minimize ever getting hit. I'd always try to stay outside of range and close the distance, not giving my opponent the opportunity. Has it worked all the time? No, not all the time, but it worked out most of the time. Because I have, when you look at the win-loss ratio overall, I do believe I have the highest winning percentile of anyone in the world. There's only 4 people in the world that have over 100 cage fights. I'm one of the 4. There's only 3 that have over 100 victories. I'm one of the 3. But the ironic part is, I faced the other 3. I defeated the other 3, and the closest one to my age was 15 years my junior. When you start throwing those categories, the fact that I was almost 37 years of age when I started my cage fighting career back in 1994. Who starts at that age? You retire.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, I only ever planned on doing one event. It went okay. Did get hurt? Well, let's do another event. Then the first year, the 5th year, the 10th year, I think it was 19 years later, is when I think I better think about exiting this sport because I'm giving up, on average, 2 decades of age to younger opponents. And I can already tell my body was slowing down. My mind is saying move, 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 but by the time the wires go from my mind to my body is going, okay. That's not a good combination. Because when you lose in mixed martial arts, you are taking physical punishment. And what I'll say here is now is that I did retire in 2013. I did come back out of retirement just relatively recently because I had a group that approached me in November 2015. Would you consider coming back out of retirement for Ken Shamrock? I go, I'm all ears. Do go on. So I started my training camp back in November 2015 for a match that was supposed to take place. The original date was February 20th or 21st, whatever that Sunday was. That is where that show was going to have, and then all of a sudden he makes this announcement about him and Hoist Gracie doing this Bellator fight on that Friday was like the 19th. I'm thinking, how is he going to fight Hoist Gracie on the 19th on a Friday and then face me on a Sunday?
Yep.
So I've put a lot of heat on Ken because there's just so many things that was misleading, that he misled a company. Whether he misled, he lied, I'm not sure which aspect, because I was not privy to his conversations with the company. I just know that he had signed a letter of intent. He had taken a financial deposit and stuff like this, and then to announce another fight, you can't. Just as far as I know, with any kind of athletic commission or working for a company, one of those prerequisites that they would have in that contract or conditions of the contract is for you not to take a match 30 or 60 days before our event. And this is taking place. Friday is Bellator. Sunday is this UR network. It's supposed to be taking place. Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So there's only really one person that probably knows the truth. Actually, two people. That would be the UR Network people and Ken Shamrock.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been around that industry just long enough to know that I could do some pretty good estimation work on all of this.
You've been in the business for a long time. You've seen people come. You've seen people go. What are your thoughts on some of these crossover athletes, such as obviously Brock Lesnar and the soon to debut CM Punk? Do you have any thoughts on either of these guys?
Well, I mean, I'll say yes and no. What I'll do is I'll address like CM Punk first. I've had a lot of people just simply just ask me, what do I think about his chances of success in this nature? I simply would tell them, I really don't know. I don't know CM Punk. I don't have a clue as to what his legitimate background is. I would hope that if he's making this kind of noise or drawing attention to the fact that he's going to be moving into mixed martial arts, that he actually has some type of tangible skills. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, he will become an embarrassment to himself. Mm-hmm. But at the same token, I keep with that. Well, look at the industry that he's from. He's from the professional wrestling industry. Well, they tend in that industry, awful bold claims take place all the time. So I'll just wait to see what happens when he finally does.
Okay.
Make that transition. If he makes that transition, it was like, am I really waiting for it? No. Does he affect my life whatsoever? No. Okay, same way like a Brock Lesnar. It's Brock comes from a legitimate amateurist background. Went to Minnesota University. Was a very successful college wrestler, and so he actually had tangible abilities.
Absolutely.
Now, and one of the greatest I guess quotes that I liked is when asked directly, do you use steroids? Or have used steroids? His reply was, I have never tested positive.
Ah.
Now, you gotta remember, what was the question?
Exactly.
What was the answer?
Exactly.
So to me, it's like, he's had a lot of success. Something tells me he probably had some good genes. Probably, I don't know if he's got any brothers or sisters. I really don't know what his background is. I just know that he wrestled at Minnesota. He held a lot of the strength records for in the weight room and things of that nature. If I was to be a guessing type of person, I kind of really doubt if he's lifetime chemical free.
Yeah. Well,
I think then that's called money in the bank at that point in time.